So I haven't been uploading very many videos here recently, and reason for that is kind of threefold. Global pandemic, which I think we can all agree caused some issues. I got my unit refurbished. You see I got nice new floors and new walls and other stuff. And then the other thing is I wanted to be able to capture video from some of these devices, and I was having trouble finding workable solutions. And I think finally plunked down the money for this unit here, which we'll talk about somewhere in this series. And hopefully that'll unblock a lot of projects. So, today we're in the annex to the lab, also known as the living room. Although, I feel like I'm alive in most rooms that I'm in, so I don't know why this one's all that different from that perspective. But, we're not here to talk about that. We're here to talk about this Commodore Amiga 1000 that I recently acquired. I never had one of these back in the day. This is the first commercially available Amiga, and as things go, like late nights, do a little bit of drinking, and then you're on eBay, and next thing you know, the packages start arriving, and that's what happened here. So we got the base unit, keyboard in very nice condition. In fact, even the focus, please. It's hard to tell, but the sticker, the plastic film, protective film, is still over the check mark on the keyboard. Nobody removed that. And this is a unit that I think got used a little bit and then put in a box and, not used that much. It's not all that yellowed. It's pretty good condition. And I have a few things that I want to do with this machine and do kind of a series on. So, a couple different things here on the table that I want to talk through in the next kind of series of videos. The first of these that we'll talk about in this video is this device called the Parceiro 2. This is a new add-on that I'm really quite fond of for this Amiga 1000. Next, we've got the open source scan converter. I'm going to be capturing some video and some demonstrations from this, with some associated doodads for converting cables and all that. Also, since this one, interesting enough, my micro mesh converter that I normally use from individual computers does not like this Amiga 1000. So I may finally get to use this laser upgrade for the tank mouse. I've got so many tank mice now that I can I can do that. And this might end up being pretty good. And then lastly, at least now, I have an A1020 5¼ inch floppy drive that was originally an option for this unit that was sold for PC interchange, IBM PC interchange, and the one that I have even came with this Amiga Transformer piece of software, which was, as I understand it, a very bad, terrible bad PC emulator that may not even work with all this other stuff that I've got configured, but we'll see. Anyhow, so I got all this stuff on the table. We're going to do a series of videos on it. So, the Parceiro 2 is an add-on for the Amiga 1000. It's a new thing. There was a Parceiro 1 also that had fewer features, and these are all made by an individual named David Dunkley. I believe that's the pronunciation of his name. Really nice fella, and you can only get these by conversing with him over email. It's, to my knowledge, is not sold in any online stores. He builds them all himself and ships them. And so the package that I got came with really nicely, it's a little unit, but nicely packaged. And it comes with the board itself, some extra, I believe these are gals, that are optional. Um, if you install them, they enable some more functionality that we'll talk about, and a little pad of deoxit gold in case the edge connector is on the Amiga 1000 that you have needs some TLC. Mine unfortunately did not. Plugged right in and started working. What does this board do? Well, the Amiga 1000 has a sidecar interface. And if I go over here, I've already flipped up the cover and you can see the edge connector here on the right. This is the same as the side expansion on the Amiga 500. It's on the other side of the system, so they're electrically compatible, but generally it's difficult to share share components between the two because when switching sides of the system, it messes with the geometry. You have to plug stuff in upside down. And much like some of the add-ons that you can get for the Amiga 500, where it adds in things like hard drive, extra RAM, things like that. This does similar, and effectively what that side interface is basically a Zorro 2 slot. I'm oversimplifying a bit. So this is a new expansion that combines several different features in one small board, and we'll go over those right now. So. Real-time clock, as evidenced by the battery here. Nice to have. Amiga 1000 didn't have a real-time clock. It also contains 8 megabytes of RAM, which is a huge amount of RAM for this system. And in fact, probably the maximum that you can put on this system without, doing some kind of CPU board. This also contains, and we see here in the front, this is an SD card slot. And also a little red LED to indicate disk activity. And so, without any modifications to my Amiga, I can use those three functionalities just by plugging this board into the side of the Amiga there. Now, there's one additional function, or you could call it two, that does require modifications to one of the system boards inside the Amiga 1000. And these chips were provided by David to do that modification, and he offered to do the modification for me if I so chose as part of the purchase price of this. I declined because I'm not yet ready to start hacking on this thing. I'm not sure if I ever will. But what these modifications do is they allow the Amiga to boot from a Kickstart ROM located on the Parceiro 2. And the Parceiro 2 can have several Kickstarts installed. I believe that the number is 3. Yes, so see here's a Kickstart bank selector. And you can select 1, 2, and 3. And so then, as most people probably know, then you do not have to boot using a Kickstart disk and then, whatever your actual system is. It pulls the Kickstart directly from this, which is handy. I have not done this modification yet, so, and may not, but it is very nice that David included the items to to do that modification, should I ever choose to in the future. And you can see this is a very nice compact board, and it's got a nice case. It says Parceiro 2 here on the side. And there's all kinds of kind of funny things written on this board. It's kind of a nice little scavenger hunt to look through and see what's going on. And you can see some silk screened spaceships on here. There's some Star Wars references. There's some Dreaming of Electric Sheep. I think that's Philip K. Dick. Focus, please. But there's a lot of fun stuff. It's very clear that David had fun building this board, and it's well constructed. And generally, like I say, I plugged it in, just worked. I love it when those kinds of things happen. But in the package, he also included a thing of deoxit gold, because that's probably the most common thing to cause issues with these kind of things. I did not have to use this, but if your edge connector is a bit corroded, that's a wonderful thing to have included in the package. Talking about the SIM card, or not SIM card, the SD card. There is one included in here. It's kind of hard to see, and David's preloaded it with Workbench and a few other things. And if I were to have one complaint about this, the case makes it kind of difficult to eject and insert SD cards. It's not impossible. It's just a little more difficult than I would like. But otherwise, this board is just wonderful, and I have no complaints, and it's really fantastic. So, get this hooked up to the Amiga, and give it a go. So this is before the Parceiro 2 is installed, and like I say, notice the first request here is for the Kickstart disc, not the Workbench discs. So we'll put this in here, and it will spin through a little bit. Loading that 512K ROM, or I think this might even be just 256K. And now we get what we would expect the Workbench 1.3 disk prompt. And I could put in a Workbench disk, but really would be much nicer to be able to boot off of a hard disk. And that's what the Parceiro 2 allows us to do. So we'll get that installed, and then we're compare the boot process here. We're at the same state now we were in the last clip, but the difference here is now we have the Parceiro 2 installed, and it fits very snugly against the unit. Color match is almost perfect, and if you didn't know any better, you would think that that's just a normal little add-on there, and not something that's brand new for an almost 40-year-old computer. So let's get this thing rolling here. I've removed the mouse, so it's the mouse connector, so it's a little easier to see, what's going on. But so put in the Kickstart disk, and that'll take a minute to load. And while it's loading, I got to say, I mentioned earlier that I didn't have to deoxit my edge connectors. But when I went to reconnect this, I did. I had a little bit of a scare. But it's all up and working now, and that hopefully will keep it going. So you can see it load the Kickstart, and then immediately starts booting off of this machine. See, the time here is correct. I think I never actually said it. I think David's in Central Time and I'm in U.S. Eastern, so it's an hour off. But there we go. It booted up, and that really was right quick, especially for a machine of this vintage. That's pretty good. And this is the system. Whoop, focus, please. that David has set up. There's for us that comes with it, and one of the videos I'm going to do is set up my own workbench setup with the stuff that I want on it. We'll do a little tour of this here in another video, but as you can see, you know, boots up real fast, looks good, and up here at the topmost port we got 8 megabytes of memory, a lot of memory, and you saw the real-time clock, and it's just such a wonderful little thing.